We already live in a digital first society. Our personal data, our health information, it is being stored, utilized, monetized in almost every action we take in modernity, including every breath we take, every step we take, everywhere we go. Our very humanity is now expressed in a continuous, never ending, enlarging field of data around us, sharded across thousands of silos. There are already what I would refer to as decreasingly legal uses of personal and health information, and undoubtedly immoral and unethical uses. Whether they may remain technically legal for some short period of time, I say the writing is on the wall. The kinds of data practices that marketers and researchers around the world depend on today are going to be replaced with a different paradigm, a different regime, and it must be centered on the person, the data subject. So that person has a new role to play in society and a lot of control and empowerment to recover.
Well, that's going to be a huge conversation, and I can't wait to dive into it because I see so many implications on multiple sides of this. One, I think, is the fight to like keep the internet and these AI technologies open source so that there's freedom and it's not all monetized or monopolized by big, tech companies and governments that control it all. On the other side, you also have to create guardrails for safety and some tracking, especially on generative AI stuff of like who owns what, made what, said what's real, what's not real, and all that kind of stuff. And then the individual side, we haven't really talked a lot about yet, but your work in the blockchain and in health and privacy is such a critical component of this, which is the personal side of things. What do we want to keep private, and how do we choose to have our own privacy, or I guess just value systems in some of these wider technological systems? And I think that's going to be really hard going forward to balance all three of those things.
Very challenging, especially if corporations and governments acting on the people for a range of goals, they have network boundaries, business boundaries, systems boundaries. They've got IT staffs in the thousands. They've got enormous resources, all pointing right now on how to maintain competitive differentiation and advantage in this era of AI that's moving so fast. Everyone is afraid, genuinely afraid, to stop and consider the implications, because it's an existential threat to companies and governments both to wait and stop while potential competitors or adversaries are not waiting or stopping. So we are all leveraged into moving as fast as we can, and we're afraid of the consequences of not advancing and not innovating to the utmost of our ability, as expressed from every corporation and every government agency. And on the other hand, all of us know how this could go so badly awry, and how difficult it would be to pull all of it back and re-implement in new systems of governance and control. We know for sure, and you mentioned this, I'm really glad that you did, presently there's very little economic distribution of value creation from AI outside of the largest hyperscalers and early stage AI companies that have blown up into anything that would reflect individual people, families, and communities. And the idea that we can separate logically a data economy from an AI economy is silly. They are one in the same. They are completely intertwined in every dimension. And there's no possibility for an individual person to ever achieve the kind of empowerment with these incredible tools that corporations and governments can achieve unless they too are able to use those tools for their own aims, absent any conflict of interest, just as every other party is advocating for its own interests and goals. So vitally, individual people have to graduate to an entirely new technological paradigm. And it's of the significance, like we were chatting about, 80s flashbacks, and remember how there was a time when the idea that every single human being would have their own internet address in the form of this email, and whatever that meant, and how crazy that was. And at a time, and there was a number of years where the thought that every person would have their own phone number was just madness. What I'm saying is a paradigm shift along those lines, but bigger, needs to occur, where individual people have to have the technological empowerment of corporations and governments. And since corporations are already treated as people under US law, that becomes all the more important.